a couple of days ago, I think it was last week, Sarah and I were talking about the brat. She was sharing with us a story of how the brat and her wife sought out a white sperm donor. They are a lesbian couple after all, so they need sperm donors in order to conceive and have children. And so they went about looking for a white sperm donor. And we were here laughing about the fact that they do that. But apparently the reason is that the other black sperm donor that they were presented with looked not much to their liking. Looked like
Jimmy the Cricket.
Jimmy
That's what
the Cricket.
they say. Jimmy the Cricket.
So they went with the white donor, and so that got us talking about, hey, but what's that going to do for the child when the child grows up? Are they going to fit in? And I kind of drew reference to conversations that have been had about how certain mixed race people struggle to fit in. Because if your parents are of different races, you're going to struggle to fit in with either. If you go hang out with your dad's people, especially if your dad is black, well then they'll call you a white person. Or here in Uganda we would say muzungu. Or if you went to be with your white mother, they would say, well, you're a black person, right? And then you might be subject to discrimination or whatever other alienation that you might experience there. And so I decided to look into it further, and I came across some interesting studies that
what did you find?
I might share with you, Sarah, to get your thoughts.
Okay.
So there is one paper here called "The Plight of Mixed Race Adolescents." And it says that over the past 40 years, the fraction of mixed-race black-white births has increased nearly 9-fold. There is little empirical evidence on how these children fare relative to their single-race counterparts. This paper describes the basic facts about the plight of mixed-race individuals during their adolescence and early adulthood. As one might expect, a host of background and achievement characteristics, mixed-race adolescents fall in between whites and blacks. But when it comes to engaging in risky or antisocial adolescent behavior, mixed race adolescents are stark outliers compared to both blacks and whites. So they proportionately are more likely to engage in risky and antisocial behavior
because they're trying to fit in. You've heard about peer pressure, so you want to prove a point that you belong there, so you just find yourself indulging in this risky behavior, like you have said, so that you can get a stamp of approval.
Exactly. So and like a cry for attention, maybe
not attention, but a stamp of approval. Do you get me? I'll give you an example. Like my mother is Interracial, my father is Langi. Now I look nothing like any of my family on both sides of the spectrum. When I go to Amuria, people are like, who is this person? When I go to Aguichiri, people are like, who is this person? So it makes it even worse that, especially when I go to my dad's place, because I don't know the language. I am not well versed with the culture. And in Africa, you basically belong to your father's side. So I even feel like I cannot claim to be from there because I do not, number one, even have a surname. I do not know the language, I do not know the culture, and I don't even like the food. Do you get me? It's very disheartening.
So have you tried to investigate the matter? Surely you might have tried to ask why you look different.
I have, and they say I look like my grandmother.
Are you the product of a unique relationship?
No, I'm definitely my father's child. DNA tested and proven, but
wait, you did that?
My parents did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But my parents keep saying I look like my grandmother, my dad's mother. That's what they say. But the thing is that because
how do you feel deep down? Are you satisfied with that answer?
No, I'm not satisfied with it. And I have also spoken about this. We had also a conversation on colorism. And remember that time when I said that I feel like darker skinned women are a lot more gorgeous because it's a culture, it's a society that I have grown in, and it's the standard of beauty where I am from. Do you understand? So, and that's the thing. So I know I belong, but I don't feel like I belong.
So if you're in a country with more lighter skinned black people, like let's say you were in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, where there's a lot of coastal people mixed already,
and I have lived in Dar es Salaam. I think I've lived there about maybe 10 months before.
Oh, you must have just blended right in.
Completely. And I got myself into actually sticky situations, like when I would go to the supermarket or I'm at the hotel and I am speaking English and they're like, you're pretending to not know Kiswahili. I'm like, I genuinely cannot speak Kiswahili. I'm Ugandan. So
what has this done for your the cloud that's hanging over your head with regards to your identity,
Yeah.
how's it affected your behavior? For example, I
Yes.
don't know about your personal life,
Yeah.
but have you behaved dangerously? Have you done things that are unhealthy?
No, but I have found myself in a position where I am trying so hard. When I go back home to the village, I am doing the most. Especially, I'm well versed with my mother's culture, the language and all that stuff. And actually, I speak better Ataso than any of my siblings. So when I go back home, I'm doing the most. I am speaking
Imagine
the
that.
language. I am, embracing the culture. I am cooking the food. Like, I am overcompensating so that I can get some, like I said, stamp of approval. Like,
So
I belong here.
Okay,
but-
so seeing as we can't, in your case, it's hard to establish the actual facts of
Yeah.
your origin,
Yeah.
whether or not, because from what you're saying, they've done DNA tests, and as far as you know, you are from your father and mother.
Yeah.
So technically, you would be within the same. I guess you're not a mixed tribal person.
I am, because my mom is
Okay.
Iteso and my father is Langi.
All right.
You get. I
okay,
am.
but so your issue is more color
my
than ethnicity.
it's more, I think, when it comes down to ethnicity or race or culture, whatever the case may be, I think the issue of biracial people, the problem is not that you're biracial and have multiple or belong to multiple cultures, because that in itself is a blessing to have,
Or a
more
curse.
diversity. The problem
curse.
is when you don't look like any of the races
It's hard
that you
to
are mixed with.
because
you
you
understand?
can't. I mean, it's hard to be a product of a white person and a black person and
look like either
look
of
like
them.
either.
Yeah.
You look like something in between, or slightly more of one or the other.
Exactly.
But you certainly won't look distinctively like one
And
race.
that is where the issue is. It's not just about having, say, that in your DNA, embedded in your DNA. You also want to look the part. You don't want to stick out like, a sore thumb.
All right, I have another study I want to share
Yeah.
with you. This one is titled Health and Behavior Characteristics of Adolescents with Mixed Race Identity. And it says this study compared the health and risk status of adolescents who identify with one race with those identifying with more than one race. The results are that mixed race adolescents showed higher risk when compared with single race adolescents on general health questions, school experience, smoking and drinking, and other risk variables. And the conclusion is adolescents who self-identify as more than one race are at higher risk, higher health and behavior risks. So once again, confirming our speculation
Yeah.
about how, and these might just be coping mechanisms. They're
Maybe.
coping with the stress
Yeah.
of being unable to easily identify with one group, and as you said, the need to belong, the need for
Uh-huh.
attention, having to work harder for approval. So my question is this:
There's also genetics, by the way.
I'm sure that's
Yeah.
also a component. But you see, when we think of mixed race couples, we think of it in romantic terms. Oh,
Yeah,
isn't
we
that
romanticize-
sweet?
They're going to have a cute
Like
baby.
they defied the odds.
Yeah.
They fought bigotry, and so there is a certain romanticism with the notion of a mixed race couple. But are we giving enough thought to the children that will be born from it? Because look, if you're a black man and you have a white woman, it may be nice and beautiful and fuzzy, and let's say the relationship ends. You'll both go your separate ways.
Yeah.
And you'll carry on life as the black man that you've always been, and she will carry on her life as the white woman she's always been.
Yeah.
But your children don't have that option.
Yeah.
They are forced to assume an identity that is already fraught with problems in terms of identity or in terms of fitting in, the social aspects, and perhaps the health and genetic aspects. So I don't know if we are at the point where we might even say it's unfair for you as a parent to selfishly pursue a romantic notion of love with someone of an opposite race or different race without thinking of how it'll affect your children. So don't you think parents need to think about that?
Yes, I absolutely agree. Parents need to definitely think about that. I don't think people ever put in enough thought into having children, whether you're going to procreate with somebody from another race or within your race itself. And this is the thing. People have very different reasons as to why they would procreate with somebody from another race. And some of those reasons are being economic. Say, for instance, when you find a black person procreate, and I'm going to give an example right here in Uganda, when you find black women intentionally and deliberately, attaching themselves to a white man or a muzungu, as we call it here, to have children with this man, they are securing themselves financially or attaching them to another economic class or status. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to dispute, I'm not going to say that this is the case for all couples,
but most.
but for a good number. For
It
a
is-
good number,
it is what
it is. Exactly. So, and also some other people just have also this sick mentality that they want to try and dilute their, genetic line by saying, oh, because we come from a place, or because my physique is not the beauty standard, let me have children that could easily be or are the beauty standard to kind of as if give them, I don't know, some leverage in life. And the thing is that people don't understand beauty standards keep changing every day. So, but there are some people who definitely go with this notion, like, I want a muzungu baby because they are cute and they have nice hair.
That's
You
right.
get me?
And so, in other words, this child becomes like a mascot that you just carry with
Exactly.
you, like a doll or a status symbol.
A trend,
A trophy.
A trophy that you carry around, and that is not right. And I agree with you, it's very selfish, and I will not dispute the fact that there are some biracial couples that genuinely fell in love, genuinely thought about the process about having, genuinely are concerned about their children's well-being, economically, financially, education and all that stuff.
I think
I can only imagine how it is for people who are biracial, couples, mixed race couples that are living in countries that are racist or a lot more prone to discrimination and racism.
It's hard for that child.
It's very difficult for that child, and also very difficult for them, because at the end of the day, there's still going to be that stigma onto that child that they are half
because
of that less favorable, race. Do you get me?
Because if the biracial child is in a Western nation, that's going to be, and if the other half is black, that's a black child.
Yeah.
And so we'll be met with all of the challenges of being black in that community. And so when this child goes home crying, saying, "Hey, mommy, they called me names," the mom won't know how to answer the question.
Yeah.
She can't relate to that problem.
Exactly.
Because she hasn't experienced it.
Yeah.
You see.
So all she can do is just, sympathize, but not really empathize. And then there's also the issue of, say, people who are white passing. And I think I sometime watched a TikTok of this woman who said that she's not ashamed to be white passing. She does not claim her blackness. You get? Is she talking about her grandmother who never claimed her blackness
but
because
people
she
like
was
that,
white passing?
I find that people like that are opportunistically black, or they switch races depending on what's convenient.
Meghan Markle.
Exactly. Who, for all her life, she was a white woman. And then when she started catching heat for marrying into the royal family, racism, they hate me because I'm black.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't seem to mind being, why is it only now that she's mentioning her being black? She never mentioned it before.
Exactly.
So it's quite strange. Now I'm just going to share with you one more study. This one is called Biracial Asian Americans and Mental Health.
Yeah.
And it says, a new study of Chinese Caucasian, Filipino Caucasian, Japanese Caucasian, and Vietnamese Caucasian. My goodness, these combinations.
Okay. But they must be really cute people.
These individuals conclude that biracial Asian Americans are twice as likely as monoracial Asian Americans to be diagnosed with a psychological disorder. A study by researchers at the Asian American Center on Disparities Research at the University of California, Davis, was reported Sunday at the annual meeting of the American Psychological Association. Up to 2.4% of the US population self-identifies as mixed race, and most of these individuals describe themselves as biracial. And it says that 34% of biracial individuals in a national survey had been diagnosed with a psychological disorder such as anxiety, depression, or substance abuse, versus 17% of monoracial individuals. In other words, almost twice as much in proportion.
And why is that so? Is it inherited? Are these mental health issues inherited, or are they...
It's hard to tell. At least this study doesn't seem to look at the origins of that depression, but rather to just report on its occurrence. But you know what? The easiest explanation is the environmental one. That's kind of straightforward. Because if well, if you're biracial, you probably are struggling to fit. But as to whether or not there could be a genetic component, that would be an interesting one to look into. But again, all these studies are pointing to the fact that there are certain unique challenges that are faced by biracial people.
Yeah.
Thus, isn't it time, as I was asking, for people of different races who are thinking of coupling to have a serious conversation about how they want to approach having children?
Yeah.
Because if they produce mixed race offspring, that child is going to experience problems that neither parent can relate to.
Yeah.
And neither parent will be able to help with. I wonder if it would make more sense, let's say, for each of the couples to go get kids from their own race and then come back to the relationship with that with that child.
Yeah.
Would that work out better for the kids, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. But again, there are also contradicting studies that say, or rather show, that being multiracial is more of an advantage than it is a disadvantage. So I think people are just going to weigh their options, the pros and the cons. And I'm just going to read in part a research paper here that I found from Pew Research Center. It's PEW. I hope I'm saying that right.
Pew.
And it goes on to say, and this is the title is Multiracial in America, Chapter 4, the Multiracial Experience. And it goes on to say, while the survey finds a generally positive outlook among multiracial adults, considerable shares report that they have experienced discrimination because of their racial background, including fully 55% who say that they have been subjected to slurs or jokes. About 4 in 10, that is 48%, say they have received poor service in restaurants and other businesses. A third or less who have been treated unfairly by an employer in hiring or pay or promotion, that's at about 33%, have been threatened or physically attacked, and that's at 30%, or have been unfairly stopped by the police. However, it also goes on to say experiences with discrimination are at least in part tied to the way one's racial background is perceived by others. And multiracial adults who are seen by others as white are far less likely to say they have faced discrimination across several measures than those who are seen as black, that is Hispanic or multiracial.
Yeah. So in other words, if you look more white, you are likely to fare better than someone who's mixed race but looks more like the other race.
Yes, and it also goes on to say multiracial Americans, for the most part, don't think having a racial background that includes more than one race has been a advantage or a disadvantage in their life. But to the extent that it has mattered, most say their racial background has been beneficial than it has been detrimental. And this particularly the case among biracial adults who are white and Asian.
You
good?
Hey, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
But have you noticed when it comes to the conversation of colorism, how it's ironic how the ones who the mixed race black people who are typically designated the black ethnic identity, they tend to fare well much better, like in Hollywood and entertainment.
That's true.
They get preferential treatment in entertainment. They are more likely to be given roles compared to their darker
counterparts.
Counterparts. So if you're in entertainment or media, chances are if you're mixed race, you're probably going to do better.
And we see all of them all the time on the big screen. However, we do see a lot other. I think with the coming of I think one movie that actually changed that narrative, and I think all the cast is doing really well, is the cast of Black Panther, and it just keeps on getting bigger and better for them. And I like to see that in Hollywood. I think Hollywood is slowly starting to allow darker looking black people seep in through the cracks. I don't think the door is widely open yet, but they are coming in. We saw you at the Oscars when you refused to give Auntie Angela Bassett that Oscar, but it's okay. It is all right.
We'll get the next one, huh?
We'll get the next one. However, let me conclude by saying that overall, this study says that about 1 in 5, and that is 19% adults with a mixed racial background, say being multiracial has been mainly an advantage, while just 4% say it has been a disadvantage, and then 76% say it has not made any difference in their life. And I think that this 76%, you are lucky, because they probably come either being raised in communities or environments where there are a lot more people who look like them.
Wow, it's a tough one.
It's a tough one, but make smart decisions. Here in Uganda, I think it is a privilege to be biracial.
Well,
as we have seen.
Well, there were several instances where, for me, it was a near occurrence where I might have ended up having children with a
white person,
ladies that were white, and this is the only time that I've sat down and thought about what that would have meant for the child if a child had been born from those relationships. I am of the view that the child would have probably struggled to fit in. And because they would be very confused about their identity.
That's true.
Do they identify more with the mom or with me, and so on and so forth? Now that I have a child who is like ethnically like black Ugandan, I feel like the child is gonna have no issues.
Exactly.
She will have issues, but identity will not be one of them.
Yeah,
is what I'm saying.
For me, in conclusion, because having this a similar issue, it has been very difficult for me, and especially like on the streets when you get when I get catcalled and I'm called a muzungu. I'm like, first of all,
you're white passing in Uganda.
Even at home, you know, relatives keep questioning why does she look different, and then on the streets I also look different. So for me, that has actually been a very, very big challenge for me, and it has caused me a lot of emotional and internal turmoil and debate. And actually, you know what's crazy? When I had my son, I was hoping to dear sweet baby Jesus that this child would come out either looking like his father or like my people, you like my tribe, you know.
Yes.
And he comes out looking like me. You get?
Yeah, it's your color.
I'm like, what is happening? What the hell?
Strong genes.
Because I was dying because my son is half Muchiga. So I was like, please let this child come out looking like a Muchiga. Or at least let him come out looking like, you know, a Langi or an Interracial. Then he comes out looking like me. It was like copy and paste. I'm like, this must be a joke.
Well then, seeing as you've had some experience with that, with the colorism and the identity issue, you might be in a good position to talk to him about it. And but I don't think he'll face.
I don't think. No, he's not. He's not suffering. He doesn't know. He doesn't have problems. At least not now. Maybe eventually.
Yeah.
Maybe eventually, but right now, no, he doesn't. And it also helps that his father's sisters, as in his aunties on his dad's side, are also, you know, fair skinned and light skinned and whatnot. So he's not going to have these problems. But for me, it is very different and impactful. First of all the men I have dated, dark skinned. I've been around dark people. I don't. So
you've been working very hard to neutralize your brownness.
I think it has been like
and
a
failed.
Subconscious thing. I know, right? You know what? I'm not even going to be mad at that, because I think subconsciously that has been like what I've been trying to do, but not intentionally, because I find like dark-skinned men very, very attractive.
Ooh, there we go.
With beards. And a full head of hair, please.
Wait, so is this you putting out the word for prospective applicants?
No, I'm just
You're fishing for a boyfriend here?
I'm just stating my preference. So if you approach me, be dark-skinned.
Well, anyway, this obviously is a subject that's of more relevance to our listeners and viewers in Western countries. And so if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube later and you are a biracial person and you can speak to your experience, kindly let us know what it's been like for you. Do you agree with the conclusions of these studies? Do you think they're wrong? As a biracial, mixed race person, do you feel like you're thriving and you've got no problems? Or if you have had some problems, maybe you can let us know how you've dealt with them, you know, for the benefit of those who might be going through something similar.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to your number one station, RX Radio. This is The Fatboy Show.